Oh, a little bit of butterfly music from Alicia Keys. Thank you so much. We welcome to our microphones Jessa Finch, who's with the Chicago Botanic Gardens. She's a climate scientist and botanist, and in particular is responsible for a project called Budburst. Jessa, what is Budburst?
And welcome.
Thank you. Budburst is a citizen science project of the garden, and citizen science refers to projects that engage the public in the process of scientific inquiry and generating new knowledge. And the name Budburst comes from the event in spring when plant buds for leaves and flowers start to swell and finally burst open, and we see that first flush of spring. And this is a major plant life cycle event, and studying life cycle events and how they respond to changing climate is called phenology, and it's a really important bioindicator of climate change.
Climate change. Science. My gosh, aren't you working kind of against trends here?
There is some frustration around the current attitudes towards science. I've been in the scientific world for a good while, and I feel that people are distrustful of science and scientists right now, and I really think projects like Budburst that get people doing the scientific process is the best way to kind of reveal what it is to them and make increase scientific literacy, which leads to important actions in terms of how they vote and how they live their lives.
What is the Nativar project?
Thank you, yes. So Nativars is one of our newest research initiatives as part of Budburst. We just celebrated our 10-year anniversary with Budburst, and we were looking at our next decade, and we wanted to try something new. And so we wanted to introduce a very specific question-focused project that we could answer in a shorter time scale than these long data sets you need to answer these climate change questions. And so Nativars refers to cultivated varieties or cultivars of native plants. And so a lot of people right now are concerned about wildlife, concerned about pollinators, and they want to create habitat, and they know that native plants are important for our wildlife because they evolved together over tens of thousands of years. But if you're to go to your neighborhood garden shop, you're going to find plants that are actually bred for different characteristics by plant breeders. These are called cultivars.
Right.
And they're derived from our native plants, but they're very different from them.
Right.
They can be different colors, different sizes, and because we selected for them and not the pollinators, we don't know if they're as valuable for our wildlife as they are for us as designers of spaces. And the Nativars project is getting school groups and nature centers to plant nativars and native plants side by side and compare pollinator visits.
Wow. Is that part of what you're doing with the grammar school students in Waukegan?
Yes.
Okay.
The Waukegan
Talk
School District has been a great partner in this initiative. They're just up north of the garden, and we connected with them. They were really excited about bringing authentic, nature-based research into their life sciences curriculum. We're working with the 4th and 5th graders at 4 schools up there, and each of the schools got one of these research gardens, and we designed a whole 10-lesson curriculum that goes along with it and supports learning about pollinator diversity, declines in pollinators, and how we can support them. And it culminates around this authentic research experience of actually collecting the data and then analyzing it.
Jessa Finch, I always do this. I jump a little bit backwards. I want to go back to the distrust.
That's the first time he's ever admitted it on the air.
Distrustfulness around scientists or around science. And I just was kind of curious why you think that is. Why have people, particularly in this day and age, when science has brought us very far, all of a sudden we've had this kind of reaction to science and bad-mouthing of science. And while I think it's a problem, I don't think it will last. But what do you think about it?
I have a few thoughts on that. One of them is that the majority of people aren't engaged with science past high school. And for a lot of them, it maybe wasn't their favorite topic in high school. And so they go on with their lives, and they think about science, that's something very separate from their lives, even though we benefit from all these scientific discoveries every day. There's not a lot of transparency, and I think that makes people feel a little fearful or apprehensive. I also think an issue is just how scientists talk. We do not talk in concrete terms people can relate to. We are always qualifying things. The data suggests there may be an effect of X on Y, and people are like, what are you talking about? We're just trained to speak very differently than journalists or other people who are used to communicating to the public.
I think that would make you actually more trustworthy these days, quite frankly. I really do.
I like the scientists.
I've been working myself for the last 3 summers, and I call it my summer camp job at Gethsemane.
Fantastic.
And they try and do the native stuff more, and they're very sincere about keeping invasives out of the perennial item in the perennials. department, what role do residential gardens play in nurturing the pollinators? And, you know, we've sold a heck of a lot of milkweed in my time there. Milkweed is everywhere now in our neighborhood.
You can eat it. You can saute those pods. We did it way back in the early days of the HeartLand.
Jeez Louise.
Just telling you.
I can't believe you reminded me of that. Did people actually like? No, never mind. Let's
I
stick
prefer
with
zucchini
Jessa.
blossoms myself.
Jessa,
I like nasturtiums.
how are we? Try and hang in there, Jessa, and follow the actual the
Line of
thread
questioning.
of bees and pollinators and butterflies and all that. What's the state? Have we helped in the last decade or so?
We have been seeing some amazing recovery of some of our native pollinators. One of the, it's too soon to say success stories,
Right.
but if you've been following the monarch butterfly population, in the past 4 and 5 years, we've been seeing gains every year. And we've just now this year reached what they consider to be a stable overwintering population down in Mexico.
I love it.
So it's, I'm so excited to hear that people are picking up milkweed and planting it. Even
Tons.
in your quarter-acre urban lot, a lot of research has shown that investing in making urban spaces, havens for pollinators, has a dramatic impact.
Yeah.
How about the birds and the bees? Any comeback on those?
Yeah, it's all connected.
That's what they say. Couldn't help myself.
We are seeing gains in some places, and in some places we're not seeing a whole lot of movement, but broadly speaking, if we continue to focus on creating green spaces, planting native plants that we know support this wildlife, and not spraying the S out of everything.
Right.
How do government agencies fit into this, and from the federal level on down?
Yeah, it's very important that we prioritize native plants at the federal level and the state level in planting and controlling non-native species. There's policy that we're trying to move right now called the Botany Bill, which would invest in not only training more botanists, we actually are a dwindling profession, there aren't as many botanists as there used to be, but also encouraging all federal agencies to prioritize native plant use. And something at that level would really, really move the needle, in addition to what we've been seeing happening at the homeowner level.
Do you and at Chicago Botanic Gardens and the Garfield Park Conservatory, do you commune with one another? Do you interface and interact at all with the city botanical people? I hope.
Yes, there is some crosstalk, in particularly at the Botanic Garden. We talk a lot to the Chicago Park District, and the Chicago Park District actually has an amazing amount of restored natural areas.
Yes,
a lot of people
we're one of them.
don't know about it. It's
Public.
Yes, it's fantastic, and so they are doing amazing work to create native plant habitat and wildlife habitat in the city, and we work with them pretty closely.
You talked about budburst marking the start of the growing season when flowers and other things begin to burst. It's now autumn. We have the equinox coming up this week. We have Chicago Henge happening on Chicago East-West streets if people want to know. But what can we do in the fall if we're doing a home garden, or are we looking at that parkway that needs a little refurbishment? Is there stuff we can do in the fall before winter to get ready for next year?
Yes, you can definitely be working on your perennial beds. I'm a big perennial fan. Also, in terms of the Budburst project, collecting data, we have an initiative called Fall into Phenology, which is about autumn color. So we're seeing all these beautiful fall colors happening on our deciduous trees, and you can record the timing where you're seeing these events, what trees, and that's helping us understand the length of the growing season and how that's changing as well.
Did you just say fall into phrenology?
Phenology.
Yeah.
My apologies. Phenology.
Spell it.
Yes. Phenology is Phenology.
Thank you.
Can you suggest some perennials for a lot of shade? I've got a lot of trees, the grass is gone. I'd just like to put more plants out there.
Yes, some of my favorite perennials in the shade are our spring ephemerals. So things like Virginia bluebells are a real favorite of mine. Our trilliums are gorgeous, and these are also really important for pollinators.
How did you decide to become a scientist?
I think every scientist has multiple points that lead them down a path, but one that I've been thinking about some in recent days is the first day of college, where I went to college at a small private school in Western Massachusetts. Every student gets a ivy plant from the Botanic Garden, and this ivy plant you're supposed to nurture for your entire career, and then it culminates in an Ivy Day ceremony. And this was the first time that I'd been in a botanic garden as someone who was starting to kind of cultivate an interest around plants, plants and people, and so that was a real starting point for me.
Can you tell us what college that was?
Oh, Smith College.
Uh-huh.
Yes, Smith College, go women's colleges. Women have a very long, wonderful history in botany because it was considered one of the only suitable sciences for women. And we've made great gains in other fields now too,
Oh,
but
good.
we're still not on par with men in any
Yeah, but
scientific
it does
field.
sort of save lives, you know. It's not surprising that women would be centered in the kind of science that says, hey, if we don't do this, we die, okay? All right. What can we do as concerned Rogers Parkers about climate crisis?
Yes. Got some major action points. Taking part in citizen science projects like Budburst and other initiatives that help us collect the data we need to make solutions that are based in evidence is really important. Check out budburst.org. You can also plant native plants. Creating these green spaces is very valuable. It helps us mitigate and also adapt to changing climates. We've been seeing extreme heat and extreme rain, and by having rain gardens and having more shade, we can better moderate these extremes in our communities. And then also growing your own food. And I know that there's a lot of interest around that at this table.
Yep.
It's a really powerful way that you can make a difference.
Yep. Wow. We could talk to you for a long, long time, but we have this musician sitting out there waiting to strum on the guitar. Jessa Finch, where is your website? How do people find you? And any last suggestions you have for people preparing their gardens going into winter?
You can find out more at budburst.org. We're also on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And I would encourage everyone to check out Chicago Botanic Gardens' many articles on container gardening and perennial gardening and prepping for winter.
Right.
They can do it far more justice than I can in this closing.
Yeah, well, what a treat to have you.
Really, Jess, I'm glad we finally got you on the show, and I'm sure we'll bring you back seasonally.
Yeah, we need
for
to have you
updates.
come back.
I want to hear more about the data you're collecting, which I know is a longer conversation.
So, yeah, can I just insert before
Sure.
you leave?
Yeah, more.
I want to know how many trees are in our neighborhood, for example, how many we've lost, and, you know, how quickly we can repair or replace those trees. And that's from neighborhood to citywide questioning. So could you prepare that kind of research for next time?
And I'll just add on to that we have a major opportunity with so many ash trees being taken down for what we put back in place. Not only the kind of tree, which the city typically takes years to replace, but maybe that's where a nice parkway pollinator garden could be planted instead.
Sure.
I don't want to lose our canopy, but in the meantime, if there's not going to be a tree planted for a while, we can do a garden.
And actually, there are neighborhoods that need the canopy more than ours.
I finally
right now.
cleaned the gutters, or I had someone clean the gutters, and there was an oak tree growing up in the gutter, and now it's in a pot, and I'm going to put it in my front yard.
On that note, fellow radio people, we're thanking Jessa
And
Finch
horticulturists.
of Chicago Botanic Gardens, the climate scientist and botanist that we have just listened to. Thank you so much, Jessa.
Thanks for having me.
And we will be right back. Currently, we're going to hear from When the Blues Man Comes to Town by Johnny Bergen.
When you've been mistreated and cast aside, sometimes you feel like you up and died. I'll ease your mind and pick you up off the ground. You're gonna be alright when the blues man comes to town. When I do my work, I have perfect control, and I won't stop till I satisfy your soul. I'll ease your mind and pick you up off the ground. You're gonna be alright when the blues man comes to town.